A brand new week and a brand new episode, and delivering a promise that I made to you on the show last week. That is a very hot exclusive story coming your way. Welcome to CNB, I'm Siddharth Vinayak Patankar, and that hot story comes to you from this brand. No, I'm not talking about the GLC facelift because this happened a few days ago and well, you've already heard about that. What I am talking about is a car that will come to us from Mercedes-Benz India a little bit later in the year, but not so far away. And to be specific, it's not Mercedes-Benz, it's Mercedes AMG. Yes, the flagship, the GT 4-door coupe, is confirmed for India. Exclusive information for you here on CNB, and that exclusive review too.
The Mercedes AMG 63S is the fastest 4-door on the planet. Yes, let that sink in. How fast, you ask? 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 3.2 seconds. Top speed in excess of 300 kilometers per hour. It even holds the record for the category at the Nürburgring at 7 minutes 30.11 seconds. And yes, it is also the fastest AMG model. And I'm happy to tell you that it is coming to India. Yes, sit back and strap on those seatbelts, folks. It's too late to grab the popcorn, because this exclusive review is hot. And well, given that color, very, very cool too. The Mercedes AMG GT 4-door is a stunner. It made its world debut at the Geneva Motor Show in 2019. The car is available with a 6 or 8-cylinder engine, each of which gets 2 states of tune. The car with me is that record-setting GT63S 4MATIC Plus. And I am weak at the knees at that heart-stopping Designo Brilliant Blue Magno matte paintwork.
Now, when this car first came out, it got so much appreciation purely for its looks. I mean, the excitement was around the fact that in the face, you straight away got AMG, you straight away got GT. But it's in the extension of that family, literally, that the big changes were very evident. Of course, the badging tells you that it's plenty powerful, nice blingy alloy wheels. That is all things that you can, of course, customize. But it's the longer wheelbase, and it's this fantastic coupe roofline that drives home the whole 4-door aspect. It's what makes the car very pretty as well. And so unlike the GT, which is all-out sports car, this one is a sports car, but it's also very elegant, something that the buyer would look for, the best of both those worlds. The electric tailgate is nice, but for me, it's the styling at the rear that really gets my attention.
Now let me tell you first off that this is not a stretched AMG GT Coupe. Yes, it shares that model line's name, engines and looks, but not its platform. So the car is built on the MRA or Modular Rear Architecture platform that also spawns the regular, larger-sized Mercedes-Benz sedans. But it has been strengthened to meet the blistering performance the car does have.
Mercedes AMG GT family starts off with the regular GT and the output's a nice healthy 466 bhp. You then go up, of course, through that range. There's many variations and iterations, but it ends up, of course, at the GTR, which is 573 horses. And then there's this car. The 63S will give you 627 horses. So that kind of explains to you just why it's so much bigger in all its credentials than the GTR. Just sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so the 4-liter V8 is also available in the non-S version that makes 577 bhp. But why talk about that when I can show you this? Let's run through the numbers formally now, shall we? If the power output did not make you sit up, that massive amount of torque flowing through with peak torque kicking in at just 2500 RPM certainly will. The 9-speed gearbox is the AMG SPEEDSHIFT MCT 9G. It is particularly tuned for high action and sporty driving, so the changes are quick indeed. It can easily adapt to smoother changes for cruising or slower city traffic too. Complementing that is the AMG Air suspension that also adapts to your driving style and keeps up with the quality of tarmac that you're on. The GT63S has 4MATIC Plus or all-wheel drive that allows for ideal torque distribution. The car can go from being all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive very intuitively depending on the traction or overall driving needs it is facing. The 63S also gets rear-wheel steering, which is another big reason why it handles like a shorter wheelbase car despite its ample proportions. Handling is further enhanced by the use of dynamic mounts for the engine.
So it's great to have all these track-focused settings, and for sure there are going to be many owners around the world who are going to make full use of that. Take the car out onto the track on the weekends and have themselves a nice little blast. But don't forget, this is a GT, it's a tourer, which is why all of this customization to make your driving not just fantastic on a dynamic scale but also really comfortable and pleasurable becomes important, because I can totally see myself going very long distances in this car without a sense of fatigue, and yet that thrill and exhilaration of an absolute sports car staying with me right through that journey.
And that brings me to the obvious point. The only reason Daimler even made this car, despite already having the CLS 53 or the E63S in its lineup, is that, yes, Mercedes needed a Porsche Panamera rival. And that is why, besides being a 4 or 5-seater and a 4-door, it had to be swanky and bloody good to drive. And yeah, don't ask, with many Panameras now being sold as hybrid, the GT 4-door will certainly get an even more powerful hybrid soon enough. Or so I hear anyway.
Now these customizable buttons down here are really cool on the steering, because you can actually program them for whatever setting you want them to be functional for. So you can do a suspension change, or you can have the nice exhaust note, slightly louder inside the cabin, or you can even have the start-stop, the engine start-stop manipulation, drive modes changing from automatic to manual. All of that can be done right here, and like I said, you can program it for different things, including of course the spoiler going up and down at the back too, and turning off the traction control. So there's a fair amount that you can do with these, and that's a nice thing because as an individual driver you have that control. And speaking of which, of course, the drive modes, you've got this toggle over here as well. You can go around and switch through all the different modes, and then if you need it in a particular situation, you can quickly hit it for the individual mode, which is also nice. And what's also nice is that if you don't really want to go into individual, but you just see a particularly bumpy patch of road, you can stay in Sport or Sport Plus, and yet you can manipulate just the suspension, put that into comfort, so the car dynamically will still stay in Sport Plus, but will give you just that slightly nicer ride.
Sport is where you want to keep this car for the most part. The Germanness of the GT63S comes through in its precision, from the steering to the suspension setup, the acceleration to its handling. The car does what you ask of it without a flinch, and yet stays far from being just clinically good. It does it all with a sense of exhilaration and fun.
So driving around in rural Schwabia with all its twisty little hilly roads and a nice stretch of countryside has been actually, a lot better in many ways than going out onto the track, because not only have I experienced different kinds of roads, but also different kinds of surfaces. And it's that sort of flexibility and capability of the car that really helps it shine through as a proper modern GT. And it's the character that I think I have grown to like about it. The fact that it's a four-door and that it's a more practical, dare I say, family car, just adds a nicer layer on top of that.
Yes, I did manage to get a lot of driving in with this car. I spent 2 whole days with it, and lucky for me, it was a mix of conditions. Yes, mostly very, very cold conditions.
Well, looks like rain once again, and you know what? The car has a slippery drive mode, which I can put it into, and maybe if there's a stretch where I can go off a public road onto a nice wet private road, yeah, maybe I can get it to sort of slide around a little bit, though not on public roads, that's for sure.
Yes, the GT63S 4-door gets a drift mode. And no, I'm not talking about the slippery drive mode. The car grips beautifully, corners with panache, and its brakes and gearbox will give you a reassured feeling all the time. In Sport Plus mode, it gets a bit edgy, and well, it can go further in race mode for the track. But no matter how you drive or in which mode, this is one agile and performance-hungry machine that also looks pretty sick, doesn't it? The same holds true for the cabin. My test car had the all-black Napa leather and AMG carbon fiber trim. You can customize that to quite an extent, of course, but I gotta say, the all-black and fiber look works. The AMG Performance steering wheel is cool, but the car also gets the latest gadgets and screens, connectivity and driver aids that Mercedes has to offer. Not to forget the ambient lighting, multiple charging points and rear AC vents. Yes, this is a luxury car too, and not just a sports car. That point is rather obvious here from the second you step in. The racy edge in the trim, though, comes from being an AMG. And then there's also the cool customizable TFT display buttons in the panel and the console between the front seats. The 4-seater layout is standard, while going with a 5-seater rear bench style configuration is also possible and becomes relevant for India. The car gets the deployable spoiler, as I already told you, that flips up to increase stability when needed. And yes, you can operate it manually too. Its sexy coupe rear still packs in a generous 461-litre boot. And in the 5-seater layout, you can fold down the rear seats to extend that to 1325 litres. The hatch tailgate, as you saw at the start, is electrically operational too. The Mercedes AMG GT63S 4MATIC 4-door will be brought in limited numbers to India as a fully built import. The car will be the first new AMG offering this year, but not the only one. Pricing will ensure that it's for the chosen few. It allows, dare I say, for a more practical take on the AMG GT family, and yet will offer its buyer brag-worthy performance, envy-inducing materials and craftsmanship, and of course, edgy, sexy styling to die for.
Icy blue and red hot all at once. That is that flagship from AMG, a car that is officially now coming to India, as I said, and it makes its actual Indian debut at the Auto Expo in the first week of February. So first appearance on Indian soil coming up very soon as well. I certainly hope it is that Designo Brilliant Blue Magno paint finish that it comes on. Now, before I tell you what else Mercedes-Benz has been up to, a big headline from this week. The Tata Altroz has received a 5-star crash rating from Global NCAP, India's second 5-star car and Tata's second to achieve it.
Tata Motors set a benchmark in safety when the Nexon subcompact SUV received a 5-star safety rating from Global NCAP last year. It has now repeated this success with the upcoming Altroz hatchback. Yes, the Altroz has received a 5-star safety rating from the Global Safety Watchdog. What's more is that it becomes only the second made-in-India car to have the distinction to achieve this rating. Global NCAP crash tested the base variant of the Altroz, which comes with standard features like dual front airbags, ABS with EBD and CSC, reverse parking sensors, ISOFIX child mounts, driver and co-driver seatbelt reminder, and high-speed alert systems. The Altroz was subjected to a front offset crash test as well as a side impact test, and it scored 16.13 points out of a possible 17 for adult occupant protection and 29 out of 49 points for child occupant, thus achieving only 3 stars for child occupant protection. The report stated that the car's structure and its footwell area were stable, and the protection offered to the head and neck area of adult occupants was good. With this, the Altroz sets the bar high for the rest of the players in the segment and adds another feather in the cap of Tata Motors.
I did promise you that I will tell you what else Mercedes-Benz has been up to, and it's a big announcement. It's not just that AMG that's coming. Well, there's a bunch of other cars coming this year as well, which you'll soon find out about. But more significant, the EQ brand has also been announced for India. And so with that, we get the EQC, which will be the first car. Here are the details.
Mercedes-Benz India ended 2019 on a very positive note by growing 3% in the last quarter on a year-on-year basis. So it decided to begin the next decade with a bang. Those shots just gave out the surprise, didn't they? Well, the cat is out of the bag as Mercedes plunges into the electric space with its EQ brand in India. And yes, its very first electric car, the EQC, will be launched in the country in the next 3 months. We've exclusively driven the EQC and brought you its review last year, but we revisit the car just to tell you what it's all about. In terms of shape, size and silhouette, and most importantly, even platform, the Mercedes-Benz EQC is very similar to the GLC. That is because it's pretty much based on that car. As far as looks go, the EQC has a very familiar front end with a large grille and a twin slat AMG-esque design. The grille itself is shrouded with a black surround that flows into the LED headlamps. The LED daytime running lights in the headlamp itself are complemented with a LED lighting strip just over the front grille. The cabin too is neat and uncluttered. The infotainment and instrument cluster are identical to what you get on the likes of an E-Class, while the central console has a similar feel too. The EQC is powered by a dual motor setup, so there's one motor for the front axle and one for the rear. This makes the EQC an all-wheel drive SUV. The EQC's motor are powered by an 80 kWh lithium-ion battery, which helps the motors produce a combined 402 brake horsepower and 765 Nm of peak torque. Mercedes says that we can expect a range of 400 km on a single charge. The company will launch the car in the metro cities first and will keep a close eye on the response it gets for the car in the country. Given that its competitors are planning to launch their electric cars soon, Mercedes-Benz certainly has the edge. Well, for now.
Now, the other thing you get with all these new Mercedes-Benz models is MBUX, the new interface with voice commands. So that's a lot of fun. It also means the rivals will be pretty active with all these new models coming, and you've got to react to that huge exclusive that we brought you this week with the AMG GT 4-door Coupe. All right, I am going to tell you that we'll stay on top of everything new that comes your way. And so remember to tune in for a lot more action next week. The Auto Expo is coming up too, so lots coming. And with that promise then, please wear your seatbelts. I'll see you next week.